We all know that meal prepping saves time, but how much time exactly? Well, today we're going to find out. I've never actually timed this before, so this is going to be interesting. We're going to be making two simple meals, one for breakfast, one for lunch, and we're going to compare how much time it takes to cook 2 single servings versus a meal prep with 8 servings. Both of these tests will include everything from start to finish, so including washing the produce, obviously cooking, and then the cleanup as well. So let's start with a single serving of breakfast first. Today we are going to make oatmeal because it's really easy, and it's basically one of my favorite breakfasts to make. So let's start the timer and get out all the ingredients and tools we're going to need for this first recipe. I'm just starting by boiling our water for the oatmeal and slicing up an apple. We only need one for this recipe, so that should be pretty fast to rinse and slice up. Now the water is boiling, it's already been about 6 minutes, and we're just gonna add in our rolled oats, our sliced apples, some cinnamon, and a pinch of salt. And we're gonna let that cook for around 10 to 12 minutes is usually how long it takes for me. Okay, breakfast is moving pretty quickly. We have just about 30 seconds left on the timer. And so the oatmeal is basically finished. All we're going to need to do is to plate it up and then wash the dishes. And we are at how many minutes? It has been about 20 minutes so far. I think we only need about 5 more minutes to plate everything and wash up the dishes real quick, and we'll be ready to eat. And that is time. It took about 24 minutes to make this breakfast from start to finish, including washing the dishes afterwards, not including eating it, of course, but not bad. Obviously, you can multitask while the oatmeal is cooking, but it still will take a bit of time to cook everything on the stovetop. So next we're going to cook up some lunch. We are just going to do some basic burrito bowls with rice and beans. I'm not cooking the beans from scratch because that would take forever. I'm going to use some already cooked beans as a representation of anyone who's using canned beans, but the rice we are going to cook from scratch, and then we're also going to saute some veggies with it as well. So let's start the timer and get that going. Again, just getting out all the tools and ingredients we're going to need for this recipe, and then starting off by cooking the rice. I always like to rinse my rice. I rinse it 3 times. And then of course add fresh water to cook it. We're just gonna bring that to a boil on the stovetop, and then we'll turn down the heat once it's boiling. Now we're gonna get our veggies ready for the stir fry. I'm just chopping a shallot and a bell pepper. Once your rice comes to a boil, you can turn down the heat to a simmer and set the timer for 15 minutes. The other thing I don't love about cooking every day is that I always feel like it's harder to make a perfect 1-person portion. Like for example, in this dish, we probably don't need the full bell pepper. You could get away with half or 3/4 of it for 1 serving. But then what do you do with the leftover pieces? I'm not gonna put like this tiny little piece back in the fridge. So I'm gonna end up using the whole thing, which is probably more than we need. And then same like the rice. I'm only cooking a 1/3 cup of rice today, which seems so small to just cook by itself. But if I were to cook more than that, it would be too much. And it just always seems harder to measure the exact quantity for 1 person than to cook a larger batch. Let me know if that's just me or not. So now just starting to saute the onion and bell pepper. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go ahead and rinse off the veggies we need for this bowl, which is just some lettuce. We're also going to need some cilantro and a lime. And again, we probably only need 1/4 of this lime for 1 recipe. So with the leftovers, I'll just store them in a Tupperware and into the fridge for later use. Meanwhile, with our stir-fried veg, I'm just adding in some oregano and some chili powder. And in that time, the rice also finished. You can tell it's done when all of the water has evaporated. And then so back to our stir fry. Once the bell peppers are softened, you can add in the black beans to heat up, and then go ahead and start plating. Okay, our second meal of the day is finished. This one did take a little bit longer. We are at 37 minutes already. So I'm actually surprised. That's a little bit longer than I thought it would have been. But of course, whenever you do something like cooking rice from scratch, it's going to take a little while. So overall, for the daily total, we are at about an hour of prepping, cooking, and washing all the dishes and everything, which isn't too bad. If this were to represent, for example, your breakfast and dinner, an hour of cooking for the full day doesn't seem terrible. But of course, once we have the meal prep done tomorrow and we can compare the two, we'll be better able to see if 1 hour is a long time or not. Okay, it is the next day. Let's do our meal prep. First, we'll get out all the ingredients that we're gonna need for both meals because we're meal prepping, so we're cooking both the breakfast and lunch at the same time as if this were like a Sunday, the day before your week of meals. I am also going to be using the Instant Pot. I debated about that because I wanted to make it a very fair time comparison, but in a real life meal prep, I would be using the Instant Pot because it makes hands-off cooking just so much easier, and that way we can cook more things at once as well because I'm gonna be using 2 pans already on the stovetop. So before anyone comes for me about how different the timing is gonna be because of the use of an Instant Pot, I'm just trying to follow a realistic meal prep, and this is what I would actually be using. So again, just measuring out now 4 servings of rice and giving that a rinse 3 times before adding in the measured out fresh water, and then popping the whole thing into the Instant Pot to cook on the rice setting. Next, I'm measuring out water for our oatmeal and getting that going on the stovetop. Then just adding all of the fruit and veggies I need for the cooking part of these recipes into our wash basin, giving those a quick rinse, and then starting to chop. Once the water's boiling, of course, we're gonna add our oats, pinch of salt, cinnamon, and chopped apples, and we'll let that simmer for 10 to 12 minutes. What I did notice is that it doesn't take longer to cook a larger quantity of something like oatmeal or rice. I mean, it can take a little bit longer for the water to come up to a boil if you're using more water, but the actual cook time itself stays the same. So for sure, we're already saving time anytime you cook something like beans or grains because that actual cook time is always going to stay the same. Time check, it's been about 20 minutes so far, and we have only cooked the oatmeal and rice. The oatmeal is actually almost done, just adding a little bit of soy milk and letting it cool. And now starting off our veggie stir fry. While the stir fry is cooking, I'm going to wash up the lettuce, cilantro, and lime for topping our burrito bowls. Meanwhile, giving the bell peppers a quick stir and adding in our oregano and chili powder. And quick time check, it's been 48 minutes already. Now this is personal preference, but I'm actually gonna keep my toppings separate from the hot part of my burrito bowls. And that way when I go to reheat the beans, rice, and veggies, we won't have any lettuce getting wilted on there. So in here we just have our lettuce, limes, cilantro. Of course, I'm gonna keep the avocado separate as well. You could even keep the salsa separate if you wanted to and just add it right before you're about to eat. But it doesn't take any extra time to add this onto the top of each bowl as you're serving it, as long as you have it prepped like this. And I think it just makes an overall better eating experience as well. And that of course will be the same with the oatmeal. There are certain fresh fruits like banana that I just think taste better when you add them the day of. So for the oatmeal boxes, I'm just leaving them plain. And then once they're reheated, feel free to add any toppings that you like. So I'm just portioning out the oatmeal into 4 separate Tupperwares to represent our 4 meals. And now with our stir-fried veggies done and our rice finished as well, I'm just going to start putting that into our meal prep boxes along with our drained and rinsed black beans and a couple tablespoons of salsa. And then lastly, we'll just do up all of these dishes, which is a lot more than the 1 day of cooking, but at least we can do them all at one time, so it shouldn't be too bad. And that is time. 1 hour and 15 minutes for this prep. And remember, this is for 8 meals in total. So after just about 1 hour of work, we already have enough for breakfast and dinner for the next 4 days. Now, I know someone is gonna say it, so let's also address the fact that for each of these meal prepped meals, we are gonna have to heat them up. So I'm adding an extra 2 minutes to heat each one in the microwave. 2 times 8 is 16, so we're tacking on an extra 16 minutes to the prep today. So now let's do the full time comparison and see really how much time did we save. For the 1 day of cooking where we cooked 2 different meals separately, it took us 61 minutes. And if you multiply that by 4 to represent 4 different days, it would be a total of 244 minutes. Versus the meal prep today took us 75 minutes plus an additional 2 minutes to reheat each of these meals at each of the meal times. So that's an additional 16 minutes we are adding on there for a total of 91 minutes. So we have 244 minutes for the week versus 91 minutes. That is a total of 153 minutes or approximately 2.5 hours saved just by doing a meal prep this week. If you wanted to take it one step further, you could even say that is about 10 hours saved overall in the month or 132 hours saved each year. I mean, what would you do with all that extra time? And for those of you who get bored eating the same meals over and over, there are always simple ways to kind of change up the meals from day to day so that you can have a little more meal diversity. So for example, with the oatmeal, you could do different toppings every day. You could do Monday peanut butter, Tuesday banana, Wednesday frozen fruit, Thursday vegan yogurt, you get the idea. And then for the burrito bowls, you could easily turn them into different meals just by adding in a flour tortilla. You could make burritos, you could use corn tortillas and make tacos. You could even spread out the toppings on some tortilla chips and make nachos. I mean, I know maybe rice with nachos is a little bit weird, but it is an option. So all of these recipes and meal prep directions are actually going to be added into a new section of the Let's Eat Plants meal prep course. This is something brand new that I have been working on for you guys. Of course, if you've purchased the course already, you will get this all automatically updated for free. But if you're not yet a student and you want a step-by-step guide on how to meal prep, in addition to recipes, shopping lists, and meal plans, which is going to be this whole new section of the meal prep course, then go check out the information in the pinned comment down below. And with that, I'll be seeing you guys again very soon.